In the heart of a vast and shimmering galaxy, where stars burned like scattered diamonds against an endless velvet expanse, there existed a planet known as Xeraxia. It was no ordinary world. Its skies were painted with hues that shifted from deep sapphire to fiery crimson depending on the time of day, and its forests glowed faintly in the dark, as if alive with secrets. The inhabitants of this strange place were equally extraordinary. Tall, slender beings with iridescent skin that shimmered under even the dimmest light. They called themselves the Vaelith, a proud race ruled by their enigmatic queen, Nyxera. Nyxera was unlike any other ruler in recorded history. Her presence commanded both awe and fear, not just because she stood taller than most of her kind or because her eyes seemed to hold galaxies within them, but because she had earned her throne through rebellion. Long ago, before ascending to power, Nyxera had overthrown her own tyrannical predecessor, defying centuries of tradition to establish her reign based on wisdom rather than brute force. She was cunning, compassionate when necessary, and utterly unpredictable, a combination that made her beloved by some and feared by others. On the opposite side of the universe, aboard the aging but resilient starship Orion's Edge, traveled a human man named Callan Drake. Unlike many humans who ventured into space seeking fortune or fame, Callan's journey was born out of necessity. Once a farmer on Earth's overcrowded continents, he'd left behind everything familiar after losing his family to a devastating plague. Now, he worked as a scavenger, salvaging parts from derelict ships and abandoned colonies for anyone willing to pay. His life was solitary, marked by long stretches of silence punctuated only by the hum of machinery and the occasional crackle of static from distant comms. Callan wasn't particularly brave or ambitious. In fact, he often joked to himself that cowardice was his greatest skill. Yet fate had a way of finding those who least expected it. On one fateful mission, while exploring what appeared to be a forgotten outpost orbiting a dying star, Callan stumbled upon something extraordinary. A hidden chamber filled with ancient artifacts, glowing softly despite millennia of neglect. Among these treasures lay a peculiar device etched with symbols he couldn't decipher. When he touched it, a surge of energy coursed through him, leaving behind a burning sensation, and an inexplicable urge to head toward Xeraxia. Unbeknownst to Callan, the artifact was far more than a relic. It was a beacon, designed to summon the attention of the Vaelith, and specifically, their queen. For reasons unknown even to herself, Nyxera felt drawn to investigate when reports reached her of unusual activity near the edge of her territory. As she prepared to confront whoever dared trespass so close to her realm, neither she nor Callan could have imagined how their paths would collide, or how profoundly they would alter each other's destinies. The Orion's Edge drifted silently through the void, its hull battered by countless micrometeorites and cosmic radiation. Inside, Callan Drake sat hunched over the artifact, his fingers tracing the intricate patterns etched into its surface. The glow it emitted pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat, filling the cramped cockpit with an eerie luminescence. He muttered curses under his breath, half convinced the thing was cursed. After all, nothing good ever came from touching mysterious alien tech, everyone knew that. But here he was, unable to shake the feeling that this object had chosen him for some unfathomable reason. His ship shuddered suddenly, jolting him out of his thoughts. Warning lights blinked furiously across the dashboard, and a shrill alarm pierced the air. "Not now," Callan groaned, slapping at the nearest console. A quick scan revealed the source of the disturbance. Multiple vessels had emerged from hyperspace and were closing in fast. Their sleek designs and glowing underbellies identified them instantly. They belonged to the Vaelith. Panic surged through Callan's veins. What did they want? And why were they converging on his rickety old ship? Before he could formulate a plan, or even decide whether running away was still an option, the lead vessel fired a warning shot. The blast missed by mere meters, sending shockwaves rippling through the ship's frame. Callan gripped the edges of his seat, knuckles white. Okay, message received," he shouted to no one in particular. There was no point resisting. With trembling hands, he activated the comm system and broadcast a garbled surrender message. Moments later, a tractor beam locked onto the Orion's Edge, dragging it inexorably toward the largest of the Vaelith ships. As the smaller craft docked, Callan scrambled to gather anything remotely useful. His mind raced with possibilities, none of them comforting. Would they interrogate him? Torture him? Or worse, dissect him? He'd heard stories about the Vaelith's advanced technology and their disdain for outsiders. This wasn't going to end well. Clutching the artifact tightly, he steeled himself as the airlock hissed open and towering figures clad in shimmering armor stepped inside. They moved with precision, surrounding him without uttering a word. Their weapons were trained on him, though their expressions remained unreadable beneath their helmets. One of them gestured sharply, indicating he should follow. Callan swallowed hard and obeyed, trying not to trip over his own feet as he shuffled forward. The corridors of the Valeth ship were vast and intimidating, lined with glowing panels that cast everything in an otherworldly light. Every step felt heavier than the last, weighed down by dread and uncertainty. Finally, they arrived at a massive door adorned with intricate carvings that matched the symbols on the artifact. It slid open with a low hum, revealing a grand chamber beyond. At its center stood Queen Nyxera, resplendent in flowing robes that shimmered like liquid starlight. Her guards parted to let her approach, their movements fluid yet deliberate. Callan froze, his breath catching in his throat. She was breathtaking and terrifying. "Human," Nyxera said, her voice resonating with authority. "You carry something that does not belong to you." Her gaze bore into him, sharp and unyielding. Callan clutched the artifact tighter, unsure whether to speak or remain silent. Sweat trickled down his temple as he realized she wasn't asking a question. It was a statement, laced with accusation. I didn't mean to take it," he stammered, his voice cracking under the weight of her stare. "I found it. I swear." Nyxera tilted her head slightly, studying him with an intensity that made his knees weak. Then, much to his astonishment, a flicker of amusement crossed her features. "You are either very foolish or very brave," she remarked, her tone softening ever so slightly. "Perhaps both." Her words caught him off guard. "Brave?" he echoed incredulously. "Lady, I'm about as brave as a field mouse facing a hawk." To his surprise, Nyxera laughed, a sound rich and melodic, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Then perhaps we shall see if your courage grows in my presence," she replied cryptically. Before Callan could respond, she turned abruptly and motioned for him to follow. Confused but too terrified to refuse, he trailed after her, the guards falling into formation behind him. The chamber they entered next was unlike anything Callan had ever seen. Its walls seemed to stretch infinitely upward, dotted with floating orbs of light that pulsed in sync with the hum of unseen machinery. In the center of the room hovered a massive holographic display, depicting constellations and planetary systems spinning lazily in midair. Nyxera approached it, her movements graceful and deliberate, and waved a hand. The image shifted, zooming in on a cluster of stars near the edge of the galaxy. "This is where you found the artifact," she stated, glancing back at him. "Tell me everything." Callan hesitated, unsure how much detail to divulge. He settled for recounting the basics: the derelict outpost, the hidden chamber, the strange compulsion that drove him to touch the artifact. As he spoke, Nyxera listened intently, her expression unreadable. When he finished, she nodded thoughtfully. "You have no idea what it is, do you?" she asked, her tone tinged with both curiosity and suspicion. "Nope," Callan admitted. "But whatever it is, it's got everyone pretty worked up, including you." Nyxera's lips curved into a faint smile. "Indeed. And now, human, you will help me uncover its secrets." "What?" Callan blurted, taking a step back. "Help you? Look, I'm just a guy trying to survive out here. I don't know anything about ancient alien tech." "Precisely why you're perfect," Nyxera countered smoothly. "Your ignorance ensures you cannot tamper further with it. Besides," she leaned closer, her piercing gaze locking onto his, "refusal is not an option." Callan gulped audibly, sweat dripping freely now. Whatever he'd gotten himself into, there was no turning back. Nyxera's decision to involve Callan in unraveling the artifact's mysteries stemmed not only from necessity but also from intrigue. Despite her commanding demeanor, she harbored a deep curiosity about humanity, a species she'd rarely encountered directly. Most humans who ventured into Valeth territory were either mercenaries or opportunists, driven by greed or desperation. Callan, however, struck her as different. Beneath his nervous exterior and self-deprecating humor lay traces of resilience and resourcefulness. Perhaps, she mused, This unlikely alliance might yield insights neither of them could achieve alone. The first challenge arose almost immediately. The artifact, which Callan had dubbed the Glowstone due to its incessant luminescence, refused to cooperate. Attempts to interface it with Valith technology resulted in erratic energy surges that nearly fried several consoles. Frustration mounted among the scientists tasked with analyzing it, their usual calm efficiency giving way to heated debates. Meanwhile, Callan found himself increasingly drawn into the chaos, offering suggestions that ranged from absurdly simple to surprisingly insightful. One such suggestion involved exposing the glowstone to varying frequencies of sound waves. "It vibrates when you touch it, right?" he pointed out during a particularly tense meeting. "Maybe it responds to vibrations too." Though skeptical, Nyxera authorized the experiment. To everyone's astonishment, including Callan's, it worked. The artifact emitted a series of harmonic tones, each accompanied by holographic projections that danced across the chamber walls. "These images, they're coordinates," Nyxera murmured, her eyes widening as she studied the shifting patterns. "But to where?" Callan squinted at the holograms, tilting his head. "Looks like a moon? That big blob there kinda resembles one." "A moon," Nyxera repeated, tapping a claw-like finger against her chin. "Interesting." Their breakthrough sparked renewed determination, but progress came at a cost. Word of the artifact's discovery spread quickly, reaching factions within the Valith hierarchy who viewed Nyxera's rule with suspicion. Chief among them was Commander Valric, a staunch traditionalist who disapproved of her unconventional methods. Tall and imposing, with armor adorned in jagged spikes, Valric exuded menace. He confronted Nyxera in private, his voice dripping with disdain. "My queen, involving this human in matters of state is reckless," he growled. "He is unworthy of trust. And yet, his input has proven invaluable," Nyxera countered coolly. "Would you deny us knowledge simply because it comes from an unexpected source?" Valric bristled. "Knowledge gained through weakness invites disaster. We must act decisively, not dally with outsiders." Nyxera's expression hardened. "Decisiveness without wisdom leads to ruin. You will stand down, Valric, or face consequences." Though outwardly submissive, Valric seethed inwardly. Determined to undermine Nyxera, he began rallying allies, spreading whispers of dissent throughout the ranks. Tensions simmered beneath the surface, threatening to boil over. Meanwhile, Callan struggled to adapt to life aboard the Valith ship. While fascinated by their advanced technology, he couldn't shake the feeling of being a fish out of water. Meals consisted of nutrient-rich gelatinous cubes that tasted vaguely of seaweed, and attempts at conversation with the guards usually ended in awkward silence. Yet amidst the strangeness, moments of levity emerged. During one late-night session with the glowstone, Callan accidentally triggered a projection that flooded the chamber with bright pink light. Startled shouts turned to laughter as everyone, including Nyxera, found themselves bathed in the surreal glow. "You've managed to turn our sacred research into a disco," Nyxera quipped, shaking her head with bemusement. "Truly, humans are a perplexing species." Callan grinned sheepishly. "Guess I've got a knack for making things weird." Despite the mounting pressure, their bond grew stronger. Through shared challenges and unexpected camaraderie, an uneasy partnership blossomed into something resembling mutual respect. But as clues about the artifact's purpose began to coalesce, so too did the stakes. Unknown forces lurked in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, and neither Nyxera nor Callan could afford to let their guard down. The revelation hit like a supernova exploding in the quiet depths of space. As Nyxera and Callan pored over the latest data extracted from the glowstone, they uncovered a sequence of symbols that translated to a single chilling phrase, "Key to Eternity." It wasn't just coordinates or random noise, it was a warning, a promise, and perhaps a prophecy wrapped into one. The implications were staggering. If true, the artifact wasn't merely an ancient relic. It held the potential to unlock unimaginable power, capable of reshaping entire civilizations, or destroying them. Callan stared at the holographic display, his face pale. Eternity? What does that even mean? Immortality? Infinite energy? Some cosmic doomsday button? Nyxera's gaze remained fixed on the swirling patterns, her luminous eyes reflecting the gravity of the situation. "It means someone else knows about this," she said quietly. "And they may already be looking for it." Her words sent a chill down Callan's spine. Before either of them could delve deeper into the mystery, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed ominously, casting eerie shadows across the chamber. Guards rushed in, weapons drawn, their voices overlapping in urgent Valeth dialects. Nixera barked orders, her composure unshaken despite the chaos unfolding around them. "They've breached the perimeter," one of the guards exclaimed, panic edging his voice. "Multiple ships inbound." "Who?" Nixera demanded, striding toward the main console. A tactical display materialized above it, showing hostile vessels converging rapidly. Their designs were unfamiliar, sleek, angular, and menacing, but their intent was clear. Callan instinctively backed away, clutching the glowstone tighter. "This can't be good," he muttered under his breath. Nixera spared him a glance, her expression a mix of frustration and grim resolve. "Stay close, human. This is far from over." The enemy fleet launched its assault without hesitation, unleashing barrages of plasma fire that lit up the void like fireworks gone horribly wrong. Explosions rocked the ship, sending shockwaves rippling through the corridors. Crew members scrambled to defend their posts while engineers worked frantically to stabilize the vessel's failing systems. Amid the pandemonium, Nixera took charge, her voice cutting through the din like a blade. She ordered countermeasures deployed and shields reinforced, all while keeping a watchful eye on Callan. "Don't let go of that thing," she instructed sharply. "Whatever happens, protect it." Callan nodded numbly, though his legs felt like jelly. He'd never been in combat before, not real combat, anyway, and the cacophony of destruction around him was overwhelming. Still, he clung to the glowstone as if his life depended on it. Maybe it did. As the battle intensified, Commander Valeric appeared, his armor scorched and his expression grim. "My queen, we cannot hold them off indefinitely," he growled. "We must retreat." "No," Nixera snapped, her tone brooking no argument. "Retreat implies surrender. We fight until the last ship falls." Valeric hesitated, torn between duty and doubt. Finally, he inclined his head curtly and returned to the fray, barking commands to rally the troops. For a moment, it seemed the tide might turn in their favor. Then, disaster struck. A massive explosion rocked the ship, throwing everyone off balance. Sparks flew from damaged consoles, and smoke filled the air. Nixera staggered but quickly regained her footing, shouting orders to contain the breach. Callan, less fortunate, tumbled backward, landing hard on the deck. Pain shot through his ribs, but he forced himself upright, clutching the glowstone desperately. Through the haze of confusion, he spotted movement near the entrance, an intruder slipping past the distracted guards. Dressed in dark, form-fitting armor and wielding a weapon that crackled with energy, the figure moved with lethal precision. Callan's heart raced as he realized the intruder's target, Nixera. "Behind you!" he shouted, pointing frantically. Nixera spun around just in time to dodge a bolt of energy that sizzled past her ear. Her reflexes were lightning fast, but the attacker was relentless. They exchanged blows, the clash of metal and energy echoing through the chamber. Callan watched in stunned horror, unsure whether to intervene or stay put. Then inspiration struck. Using the glowstone as leverage, he hurled himself into the fray, aiming for the intruder's legs. His clumsy tackle succeeded in knocking them off balance, giving Nixera the opening she needed. With a swift, decisive motion, she disarmed the assailant and pinned them to the ground. Guards swarmed in, securing the prisoner and dragging them away for interrogation. Breathing heavily, Nixera turned to Callan, her expression a mixture of gratitude and exasperation. "You realize that was incredibly reckless, yes?" Callan grinned weakly, wincing as he climbed to his feet. "Hey, I figured you owed me one for earlier." She raised an eyebrow, then chuckled softly. "Fair enough." But their reprieve was short-lived. Another explosion shook the ship, followed by the ominous creak of structural failure. Warning lights flashed urgently, signaling critical damage to the core systems. Nixera's jaw tightened as she surveyed the devastation. "We need to evacuate," she declared. Now. Without waiting for confirmation, she grabbed Callan's arm and pulled him toward the nearest escape pod bay. Along the way, they encountered pockets of resistance, narrowly avoiding bursts of enemy fire. By the time they reached the pods, sweat poured down Callan's face, mingling with soot and adrenaline. "This is insane," he gasped as Nixera sealed the hatch behind them. "How are we supposed to survive this?" "We adapt," she replied firmly, initiating the launch sequence. "And we endure." With a deafening roar, the pod detached from the dying ship, hurtling into the void. Behind them, the once mighty Valeth vessel succumbed to its wounds, erupting in a brilliant inferno that illuminated the darkness. Callan stared out the viewport, awestruck and terrified, as the flames faded into the cold embrace of space. Nixera placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We're not done yet," she said, her voice steady. "But rest assured, we'll find answers, together." Callan glanced at her, then at the glowstone still clutched in his hands. For better or worse, their fates were intertwined now. And somewhere out there, lurking in the shadows of eternity, awaited truths that would change everything. The escape pod jolted violently as it entered the atmosphere of a nearby planet, its heat shield glowing red-hot from the friction. Callan gripped the edges of his seat, gritting his teeth against the turbulence. Beside him, Nixera remained eerily calm, her focus unwavering despite the chaos around them. The pod's descent slowed gradually, guided by its automated systems, until it finally crashed into the dense foliage below with a bone-rattling thud. For a moment, silence reigned. Then, groaning, Callan unbuckled himself and stumbled toward the exit hatch. "Well, that was fun," he muttered sarcastically, rubbing his sore neck. "Next time, let's try teleportation." Nixera ignored his quip, scanning their surroundings with sharp, calculating eyes. They had landed in a forest unlike any Callan had seen before. Towering trees stretched skyward, their trunks luminescent and pulsating faintly, as though alive. Strange creatures flitted between branches, emitting soft chirps and clicks that echoed through the air. The ground beneath their feet felt spongy, almost elastic, and emitted a faint phosphorescent glow. "This place, it's beautiful," Callan murmured, taking in the surreal landscape. "Also probably full of things that want to eat us." "Beauty often masks danger," Nixera replied, stepping cautiously onto the uneven terrain. "Stay alert." They began moving deeper into the forest, the glowstone tucked securely under Callan's arm. Its light seemed to react to their environment, growing brighter as they ventured further. Occasionally, it emitted soft hums, almost like responses to stimuli invisible to the naked eye. Nixera paused frequently to examine the artifact, her brow furrowed in concentration. "What's it doing now?" Callan asked nervously, glancing over his shoulder at every rustle of leaves. "It senses something," she answered cryptically. "Something powerful." Before Callan could press for details, a sudden movement caught his eye. A pair of glowing eyes peered at them from the shadows, followed by another, and another. Slowly, shapes emerged from the darkness. Sleek, wolf-like creatures with elongated limbs and razor-sharp claws. Their bodies shimmered faintly, blending seamlessly with the glowing foliage. "Oh great," Callan whispered, backing up instinctively. "More surprises." The pack circled them, low growls rumbling through the air. Nixera stood her ground, her posture tense but controlled. "Do not provoke them," she warned softly. "These are Zenarii, guardians of this world. They do not attack without cause." As if testing her claim, one of the beasts stepped forward, its muzzle twitching as it sniffed the air. Its gaze locked onto the glowstone, and a low whine escaped its throat. The other Zenarii mirrored its behavior, inching closer with cautious curiosity. Callan tightened his grip on the artifact. Nixera? Any chance they're friendly?" "They are," she replied, though her tone suggested she wasn't entirely certain. "But they won't tolerate threats." The leader of the pack approached Nixera, lowering its head in a gesture that resembled submission. She extended a hand slowly, allowing the creature to sniff her fingers. After a moment, it nudged her palm gently, then turned and trotted deeper into the forest, looking back expectantly. "They want us to follow," Nixera said, rising to her full height. "Come." Callan. We have no choice. Callan hesitated, eyeing the remaining Zenarii warily. No offense, but following giant alien wolves into the woods sounds like the setup for a bad horror movie. Better than staying here, Nyxera countered, already moving after the pack leader. Reluctantly, Callan followed, muttering under his breath about how his life had spiraled so far out of control. The journey through the forest was both mesmerizing and unnerving. The Zenarii led them along winding paths illuminated by bioluminescent plants, their forms flickering like ghostly apparitions. Occasionally, they stopped to inspect markings carved into tree trunks, symbols eerily similar to those etched into the glowstone. Each time, Nyxera examined them closely, piecing together fragments of understanding. Eventually, they reached a clearing dominated by a massive structure shaped like a spiral staircase twisting into the heavens. Made of translucent material that refracted light into dazzling rainbows, it pulsed rhythmically, as though breathing. The Zenarii halted at the base, bowing low before retreating into the shadows. "This is it," Nyxera breathed, her voice tinged with awe. "The Nexus." "The what now?" Callan asked, staring up at the towering edifice. "The Nexus," she repeated, turning to face him. "A convergence point of energy and knowledge. It's said to hold the answers to existence itself." Callan blinked. "So, basically Google, but way creepier?" Nyxera rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a small smile. "Something like that." As they ascended the spiraling steps, the glowstone reacted strongly, vibrating intensely and casting beams of light that interacted with the structure. Patterns formed in the air, holographic maps, equations, and images of distant worlds. Nyxera studied them intently, her expression shifting between wonder and concern. "These visions," she murmured. "They depict events yet to come. Wars, alliances, betrayals." "And us?" Callan prompted, pointing at an image that vaguely resembled the two of them standing side by side. "Yes," Nyxera confirmed, her voice barely audible. "Us." Before they could delve deeper, the ground trembled violently. The Nexus shuddered, cracks forming along its surface as beams of light shot erratically into the sky. The Zenarii reappeared, howling in distress, as shadowy figures descended from above, commandos clad in black armor, their insignias marking them as agents of the faction opposing Nyxera. "Commander Veilric," Nyxera spat, recognizing their leader. "Traitor!" Veilric smirked, raising his weapon. "Not a traitor, my queen. A visionary. And now, thanks to you, we have access to the Nexus." Callan stepped protectively in front of Nyxera, clutching the glowstone tightly. "Over my dead body," he snarled, surprising even himself with his defiance. Veilric chuckled darkly. "If you insist." With the odds stacked against them, Callan and Nyxera braced for battle, their fates hanging precariously in the balance. The Nexus loomed above, its secrets tantalizingly close yet perilously out of reach. The standoff at the Nexus was electric, tension crackling in the air like static before a storm. Commander Veilric's forces surrounded them, their weapons trained on Nyxera and Callan with deadly precision. The Zenarii growled low in their throats, hackles raised as they formed a protective barrier around the two unlikely allies. But even their fierce loyalty couldn't tip the scales against the heavily armed invaders. Callan glanced at Nyxera, his heart pounding. "Got any brilliant plans, or are we just winging it?" Her lips curved into a faint smirk despite the dire circumstances. "I always have a plan," she whispered, her voice steady. Then louder, addressing Veilric, she added, "You underestimate the power of unity, traitor. And you overestimate your ability to control what you do not understand." Veilric sneered, taking a step closer. "Enough posturing, Nyxera. Hand over the artifact, or watch your precious human die first." Callan swallowed hard but held his ground, clutching the glowstone tightly. He'd come too far to back down now. "Yeah. Well, good luck getting this thing without blowing us all up," he shot back, injecting false bravado into his tone. "Looks pretty unstable if you ask me." Nyxera seized the moment, her mind racing through possibilities. She turned to Callan, her gaze locking onto his with unspoken understanding. "Trust me," she said simply. Always a scary phrase, Callan muttered under his breath, but he nodded nonetheless. With a swift motion, Nyxera activated a hidden mechanism on her wristband, a device capable of interfacing directly with the glowstone. Instantly, the artifact flared to life, its light intensifying until it blinded everyone present. The Zenarii howled in response, their forms shimmering as they unleashed bursts of energy that disrupted Veilric's troops. Chaos erupted. Blasts of plasma ricocheted off trees, scorching the glowing foliage. The Zenarii lunged at the attackers, their claws flashing like streaks of silver. Amid the confusion, Nyxera grabbed Callan's arm and pulled him toward the base of the nexus. "Now!" she shouted, slamming her palm onto a crystalline panel embedded in the structure. The entire edifice shuddered violently, beams of light shooting outward in every direction. Holographic projections exploded into existence, swirling around them like a cosmic dance. Symbols and equations cascaded across the air, forming intricate patterns that pulsed with vitality. It was as though the Nexus itself had awakened, responding to the combined energies of the glowstone and Nyxera's commands. Veilric roared in frustration, firing wildly at the pair. One bolt grazed Nyxera's shoulder, causing her to stumble. Callan reacted instinctively, throwing himself between her and the next shot. Pain seared through his side as the blast grazed him, but he gritted his teeth and pushed forward, determined to protect her. "Keep going," Callan urged, his voice strained. "Finish whatever you're doing." Nyxera hesitated for only a fraction of a second before nodding grimly. Summoning every ounce of strength, she channeled the Nexus's energy through the glowstone, weaving together threads of knowledge and intention. The artifact hummed louder, vibrating so intensely that Callan could barely hold onto it. A surge of warmth spread through his hands, traveling up his arms and filling him with an inexplicable sense of clarity. "This isn't just a key," Nyxera exclaimed, realization dawning in her eyes. "It's a bridge to a higher plane of existence, to unity beyond conflict." Before Callan could fully process her words, the world around them dissolved into light. Time seemed to stretch and compress simultaneously, pulling them into a realm where reality bent and shifted like liquid glass. They stood suspended in a vast expanse of stars and nebulae, connected by luminous strands that represented countless lives, civilizations, and destinies. From within this celestial tapestry emerged a being unlike anything either of them had ever encountered. Its form was indistinct, constantly shifting between shapes both familiar and alien. Yet its presence radiated wisdom and compassion, enveloping them in a sense of profound peace. "You seek understanding," the entity intoned, its voice resonating like a symphony of galaxies. "But true understanding requires sacrifice." Callan exchanged a glance with Nyxera, fear mingling with determination. "What kind of sacrifice?" he asked cautiously. "To bridge worlds is to transcend individuality," the entity replied. "Only those willing to let go of themselves may forge such connections." Nyxera stepped forward, her expression resolute. "I am ready," she declared. "For my people. For peace." Callan shook his head vehemently. "No way. We're in this together, remember? If anyone's sacrificing anything, it's gotta be both of us, or neither." The entity regarded them silently for a moment, then nodded approvingly. "So be it. Your bond has proven stronger than division. Together, you shall become the conduit." As one, Callan and Nyxera reached out, their hands meeting in the center of the glowing web. The Nexus's energy surged through them, merging their consciousnesses and transcending physical boundaries. Memories, emotions, and lifetimes flooded their minds, intertwining until they were no longer separate beings but a unified force of creation. When they returned to the forest clearing, the battle had ceased. Veilric and his forces lay unconscious, overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of the Nexus's awakening. The Zenarii gathered around, their glowing eyes filled with reverence. The Nexus itself stood intact, its pulsating rhythm harmonizing with the natural flow of the planet. Callan blinked, disoriented but alive. Beside him, Nyxera stirred, her iridescent skin shimmering more vibrantly than ever before. She smiled softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We did it," she said, her voice tinged with wonder. "Together." Over the following weeks, News of the Nexus's activation spread throughout the galaxy. Civilizations once divided by mistrust and hostility began reaching out to one another, guided by the newfound connection forged by Callan and Nixera. The artifact, now inert, was enshrined as a symbol of hope and cooperation, a testament to the power of unity. As for Callan and Nixera, they chose to remain partners, exploring the stars and continuing their mission to bring peace to conflicted worlds. Their bond, strengthened by shared trials and sacrifices, became legendary among both humans and Valeth alike. Though their journey was far from over, they faced each new challenge with unwavering resolve and a touch of humor. One evening, aboard a newly refurbished Orion's Edge, Callan leaned back in his chair, watching Nixera tinker with the ship's controls. "You know," he mused aloud, "if someone had told me a year ago I'd end up saving the universe with an alien queen, I'd have laughed in their face." Nixera glanced up, amusement dancing in her galaxy-like eyes. "And yet here we are," she replied, her tone warm. "Perhaps destiny has a peculiar sense of humor. Or maybe it just likes messing with us," Callan quipped, grinning. They shared a laugh, the sound echoing through the ship like a promise of brighter days ahead. Whatever challenges awaited them, they would face them side by side, two souls forever united by a shared purpose and an unbreakable friendship. And so, beneath the endless skies of Zeraxia and beyond, their story continued, a tale of rebellion, courage, and the enduring power of connection.